So here now we're arriving at the central Methodist church. So you can see it's characterised by kind of a Romanesque and neoclassical elevation at the front. So again, not at all dissimilar to the assembly rooms, which I think was where our Grebos started coming in. So it really is incredibly grand. So we're looking for a lady by the name of Angie, who we hope is going to take us by the hand and show us something of this fabulous building. Excuse me, thank you. I shall go and find her. How exciting. Never been here before, and now I get to go upstairs. Look at that, beautiful, beautiful, beautiful. Look at this, isn't this enticing and interesting? And full some excitement. Somewhere in New York that I've never been. Look at that. What a place this is. So I think this is our lady down here, Angie, who's going to be our guide and chat to us a little bit about this fabulous building. So of course we are in a Methodist chapel. Hiya. And not just any old Methodist chapel. This really, sorry, I do beg your pardon. This really is an absolutely stunning vision. I mean, for a start, look at the size of the organ. But I believe our written expert now is free. She's smiling. That's always a good sign. People look terrified. May I just give you that little microphone just to bob around somewhere and introduce yourself?
Yeah, I'm Angie Creswick. I work for the Methodist Church, for the Methodist Circuit.
Yeah.
So I know Central well, and I'm an engineer and project manager, so I've worked on their schemes here, but I know the building well. And
I mean, this is some chapel, right?
It is incredible, isn't it?
We tend to think of chapels as sort of being fairly modest, fairly plain. This seems to be the exact opposite.
Yes, it is, from the frontage.
Yeah.
Although, for York residents,
Yeah.
I would always point out that there was never a plaza at the front. There was briefly a bare patch of ground that was used as a car park, but it's always been a narrow street. It was, I think, some of the reason for it being located here is because of its proximity to Hungate.
Yeah.
So it's in a place.
So the carbuncle of Stonebow is not the recent addition. There's always been a sort of blocked frontage. Is that what you're saying?
Yes, it was always a narrow street.
Yeah.
And so what we're looking at here is a building that was built to accommodate 1,500 people.
1,500, wow.
It now can accommodate about 1,000
About
maximum.
1,000.
So it's pretty impressive. It's we see the box pews are, the architect was a joiner by trade from Leeds. So I sort of sometimes quip that he was building a masonry structure to contain his joinery.
So, not dissimilar to obviously Holy Trinity on Goodrue Gate. We went last year. We've been in Whitby Church as well with the box pews. But so it's sort of swimming in the same.
Oh, I'm going to tell you something
very
different.
Tell me. Put me straight.
Different.
Put me straight.
Okay, this building is designed for the spoken word.
Yeah.
So the people coming here, they can see and hear their preacher.
Yeah. So the sight lines are good.
So more than good. To the point that their preacher can see them as well, can see the whites of their eyes.
Yeah.
It's very personable. So you've got to remember that the pulpit was another stage higher.
Yeah.
So the person on the screen is the height, that probably a different different scale. But this is, you can really be seen and you can see.
Yeah.
There were steps from the basement.
Yeah.
For the vestry down there, so that you emerged out to preach, and then we know that they would have heard God's word, and then words of that they were valued and loved from there.
So there's almost an element of performance in that, then, isn't it? It's sort of some stagecraft, as you might say, in thinking about the presentation.
I think the presentation, I think that would be fair. Yeah, I'm sure there were preachers who drew the masses.
Yeah.
But the other thing is congregational singing, because for Methodists, singing is really in our DNA.
Yeah.
So we're singing in the round. When you're downstairs, you don't necessarily see this. You have to come upstairs to realise that you're singing with the rest of your faith family.
Yeah.
You're singing words that mean a lot to you in your own language. This space is designed for this. And it's got
So the acoustics work, do they, as a from singing? Yeah.
And this is where the contrast to the Minster is where the stained glass tells the stories.
Yeah.
And the choral work, chanting, is in a very reflective space. Here, it doesn't mush the sound, it's very clear. So the spoken word is very clear and the singing is. And of course, accompanied by an organ that we cannot miss.
It is quite special. And so the date, 1840s, is it that sort of?
It was built in 1840 to celebrate
1840.
100 years of Methodism.
100 years, okay.
So hence, it's actually called not Central Methodist, it's actually called Centenary Chapel.
Centenary, yeah, absolutely.
So...
and how long did it take in that sort of first 100 years to become the great sort of success story? I mean, obviously we think now about, you know, that you kind of swoop in the country and a chapel in every sort of hamlet, but how long did that actually take?
Well, I suppose this is evidence of where they were after 100 years.
Yeah.
I think you have to say that Methodism took root in places where industrialisation was changing society and where, you know, people frankly lived quite hard lives.
Yes.
And so they really appreciated the class structures that Methodism had of close-knit groups. And so this is much more than a worshipping community. They're also, all their social outlets are through membership at the church. And frankly, their entertainment.
Yeah.
So later on, we've got descriptions of bicycle groups and all sorts of groups.
Yeah.
But also this strong drive for social action, for social justice, which is still true in the Methodist Church today.
And also, and not to the Quakers, well, this idea that you can give people positive pursuits, that they'll make the right sort of choices, won't they? Those focus on, you know, not drinking, not gambling, not doing things that will take you down those paths. But
so it's self-improvement.
Choral societies, brass bands, sports teams, you can have like that sort of positive Christianity in action, as you might say.
Absolutely. But also serving those on the margins.
Yeah.
So I think that's what's really distinctive about Methodism.
And it always appealed, didn't it, to whether it be urban or rural, working class, that's always sort of, it's better for support, wasn't it? Rather than from the sort of very wealthy.
So when we're seeing around up here, this is... When it first opened in 1840, this was what was full to max, according to the records at the Borthwick. It was upstairs that was full.
Yep.
And even our worthies, who we can see sat in more plush accommodation downstairs.
I see the padded, yes.
I mean,
so there's a degree, if you like, of...
There's a certain hierarchy of seating, which can make us feel uncomfortable, but they were actually... tradespeople who'd worked hard. Very often they'd been apprentices who'd just worked their socks off and got where they were and been able to give back. But of course, when we talk... Oh, you're looking at the ceiling now.
Yeah, sorry.
I'm going to tell you something about the ceiling.
Do.
Yeah,
it's
I love Victorians. Victorians are just so clever. And so when you get to these rosettes, you see perforations in them.
Yeah.
Now, I happen to know, because I go up into the roof void, when we've got contractors working, and there's a ventilation system with timber ductwork.
Just helping it all to breathe.
So, which actually, we want to, if we're full of 1,500 people, it's going to get pretty stuffy.
Yeah.
And we also don't want anybody nodding off, do we?
So they thought of these things, yes.
So you've got and it's also about health. Victorians were really aware about health. So there's the heating system in here is incredible. It's Victorian. Yeah. It's actually, you'll be pleased to know, the boiler isn't, so it's highly efficient.
Yeah.
And we also, when we did the project 2 years ago now, we reslated the roof for the first time, but we also fully insulated the roof, because for Methodists they're really conscious about social justice. So the climate justice is included in that. So we are really well insulated, in a historic environment. And nobody would know.
Health, it's a fascinating time, isn't it? Because this would have been, when this opened, we just sort of between the sort of typhoid epidemics, but just for the kind of clean water, and John Snow, obviously from York as well. So it's slap bang in that period, isn't it, when they're really getting out, understanding healthy buildings and how to live differently.
And in fact, during the COVID pandemic, when we had a contractor on site, that was one of the things we immediately did, was work on our historic windows, repair them, but make them openable again.
Yes.
So, we had to relearn things that we'd forgotten. But
nothing like fresh air, is it? At the end of the day, it's all the way back to Galen, I think it was, that sort of first sort of spotted that. But.
So I think although we're looking at the chapel at the moment, the ancillary buildings are where you get the real Methodist flavour, and I suspect always were.
Yeah.
So the ancillary buildings are where the distinctive Methodist work is done. But this is a very, very typical arrangement for our worship area.
This frieze work is catching me. It's almost like Wedgwood sort of style, isn't it? I can't sort of quite place it within either the Victorian tradition or the kind of chapel. It's lovely, but it sort of seems strangely out of place for some reason. I don't know why. It's not. I don't appreciate it. I can't.
It's original. I agree with you. I don't know with the colour scheme. This, I think, dates back to 1990s. The last time it was decorated. Right. So I don't know how true it is.
Bit of license, you think, colours. Perhaps being taken by the decorators.
But I know the egg and dart, which is the image of the line of moulding above the blue, so the red and white, is very classical.
Yeah.
And it's actually egg and dart is about life and death, life and death repeating.
Like continuum sort of thing, yeah.
So you're getting some very classical...
Oh, it's like sort of Greek stylings, isn't he? That kind of working, that's what Wedgwood was sort of picking up on, but it just sort of seemed a little bit incongruous to the rest of the decor in a wonderful way. But that's what we love from buildings, isn't it?
Yeah.
And then we've obviously got a nod towards stained glass windows, but without really being stained glass windows.
Well, they're not stained glass at all.
They're coloured glass.
They're flashed glass.
Flashed glass, right, okay.
So flashed glass is a layer of clear glass that then...
Can we go perhaps and get a little bit closer?
Absolutely.
Thank you. The light's just coming through there. Wonderful, just sort of a ray of light just come through.
So it'd be interesting to see which colour you choose. Yes.
Well, it's got this orange, isn't it? It's absolutely wonderfully rendered.
So this is all part of this space being very light filled, and the colour actually this is from the late 1800s.
Yeah.
And the flash glass is a layer of coloured glass put on top of a layer of clear glass and then etched off.
Yeah.
So it's a very distinctive way of doing your coloured glass. It was a gift from William Leake.
Okay.
And I'm not quite sure why he chose to do this, but they obviously thought this place needed sprucing up.
Yeah. And actually this pattern does actually reference the frieze sort of, sort of, doesn't it, in terms of that continuation. It's got a...
I think it looks almost contemporary, doesn't it?
Yeah, but it's sort of speaking the same language, isn't it, of the fluidity of the...
And I also find it interesting that it took me a while to realise that the orange wasn't just red faded.
Right.
Because we have orange, red and blue intentionally. And at some point I thought the orange was where just the red had lost some of its pigment.
Yeah, because it's clearly red in that one across the way, isn't it?
Yeah. So,
but you think that's the original pigment was for the orange rather than...
The orange is intentional, yeah.
Can we go downstairs then and have a look at the downstairs? We've seen the cheap seats, as you might say.
Have you seen the pipes?
Let's go and have a look.
Sorry. Yeah, that's right.
It's lovely, actually. It's real sort of... So I'm guessing this is pretty loud when it gets fired up.
This is really a substantial instrument and very, very impressive. It's played every week for worship. And
what is it? Mahogany? This wood is absolutely beautiful.
It's Spanish mahogany, which I understand has nothing to do with about Spain. It's just a reference to a type of mahogany.
It's beautiful, isn't it?
And so the casing and the pipes are original, and I believe a contemporary. The organ itself is was put in immediately after the building was constructed. So
the turning of this wood is beautifully done, isn't it?
it is impressive, and it likes. I'm trying to think of the words. The organist would originally have been in the middle there.
Yeah.
And you'll see the pew seats either side of him are slightly adapted. So he'd have been surrounded by a choir, but they would have just been leading the congregation.
Oh, I see. Okay.
They might have done anthems, but they.
That is one heck of a sight of.
And I'm afraid I can't. I'm not an organist. And our organist isn't on premises, otherwise I'd talk more about the instrument.
So, do they go behind then? Are they out of view? The organist. Like, where is the pedals and the stops and everything?
I can show. I should have opened it up. So the. That was where the console was.
That's what I assumed. I was looking at it and thinking, well, this appears to be the.
Yeah, and then in the 1960s, it was moved to the middle downstairs.
Is that door open?
Yes.
Okay. Oh, I see. So but that's still connected up to the to the pipes.
Yes. So.
So again, that's quite unusual, isn't it, by comparison to an Anglican church, where the organist would usually be not really in the centre of it. I suppose that, as you say, that putting the music right at the heart of
the worship. And it's saying something in the 1960s. I'm not sure what. It makes me realise I should ask some of the church members about that decision-making process. But yes, it's collaborative, isn't it? Music is seen as a thing to be
looking
joined.
at the preacher as well as.
Yeah.
Isn't that interesting? As I say, because they're sort of normally tucked to the side, aren't they?
So
to a choir stall or whatever. The location of is quite different.
Now watch yourself. You're going to walk down these without videoing, aren't you?
Yeah. I love the backstairs bits. I did a tour.
Below is him teaching. The carved plaque below shows him teaching pastors, because he was particularly keen to teach Chinese people to minister to their fellow man.
And did Methodism get a foothold in China then as a result of this
I don't know,
outreach?
That's beyond my knowledge.
No, yeah, it's not the first country you'd think, is it, to associate, but...
there was a strong missionary presence in China.
I know there are Christians in China, but I'd never really thought about it as a...
And these other ones probably are less... I can't... probably... The next one I'd probably draw your attention to is William Leake.
Okay.
Over there.
Let's go and have a look at his... should we go this way?
Because for anybody who lives in York...
Yep.
And has done for some time, will remember a department store.
Leake and Thorpe's, oh yes.
Thorpe.
Agar's up to the Agar Arms. Is that?
Well, Agar he's everywhere.
Yeah.
And he's a founding trustee for many Methodist premises. So famous Leake and Thorpe's, which is now, well, it's part of it's next, isn't it, now on Coney Street? Yes,
I remember it well.
Prior to that, it was in Parliament Street.
Oh, really?
And then, and he, so he was a trustee here for decades. And what I really love is that Helen, his wife, when William died, she became a trustee. So, I mean, I'm reading that now from there. So she died in 1874. So that's impressive.
Mm.
Although, actually, I'm looking that my dates are wrong, because it maybe isn't. It has her dying before him.
It's interesting you mentioned about him being a liberal, because obviously there was that time, wasn't there, of the Liberal Party and non-conformist faiths.
Oh, I don't think that's as it means. I think it's liberal as a member of the church. I don't think it's his political persuasion. But I'm just realising I'm missaying about Helen and William. That must be his first wife.
But I know around that period, when Gladstone was obviously Prime Minister, he'd put an awful lot of his support for what they call the Celtic fringe, you know, the the west of the country, where there was a lot of strong tradition of nonconformity, and a lot of people were promoted and given advantage during that period. Yeah, so it was a lot of the chapels were strongly supportive. Of course, Disraeli was his altar, and of course he was Jewish. So it was sort of a way of differentiating themselves. But yeah, it's interesting because obviously, from what I understand, before that you wouldn't necessarily get people being sheriffs and Lord Mayors would tend to be coming from the high Anglican families and your traditional rather than the nonconformist elements of.
So this is really showing us a bit of what's going on at the front.
Yeah.
Is this feeling of we are part of the establishment.
Yeah. It's an arrival, isn't it? I mean, this is a statement piece, isn't it? There's every bit as imposing as the assembly rooms or any of the great buildings of York. Were it not for the stone bow in front of it, this would be one of the great vistas of the city, wouldn't it? But it's not lost. And it's fabulous.
And I don't think we need to blame Stonebow because
can we not?
The George Hotel was in this locality.
Yeah.
There were lots of buildings there.
Yeah.
So we're not going to just.
Right here. We'll suspend disbelief. Yeah. It's an unlikely friend in you, obviously.
Well, no, I just like all evidence of built heritage. So.
Well, indeed, it's got its place, hasn't it?
And it tells us something about what was going on in the 1960s.
Yes.
So.
Love that. I love the colour of that mahogany. But I'm about out of battery. I've been going 2 hours. I'm also about out of. We're on 4 o'clock as well, which was scheduled time. So thank you so much. It's been an absolute pleasure. Really love it. I've never been in here before. I lived in New York for so many years. Never been in here before. So it's fantastic to actually go somewhere, introduce other people as well to what I'm seeing for the first time. So thank you so much. Absolutely lovely.
Do come back.